let's get going. And not if you can hear me. Can you hear me? Yes, oh, that's good. It's a bit lonely here. But anyway, right, just well, I think a useful thing to do just to start with, those of us who are in the meeting at the moment, just to say, well, welcome everybody. It's great to have you on board. I think a few more people will be joining in the next few minutes, hopefully. But just to go through a few housekeeping points, just to start with. So if you could keep yourself muted with that button down the bottom left-hand corner of your black screen there, that would be good. And until we get to the questions, and we'll have questions after the presentations. So if you could just keep yourself muted until then, and then if you want to say something, rather than just unmuting and sort of blurting out, it would be good if you can use the raise hand function. Now, do you know about the raise hand function? That is should be down there. If you click on your participants button at the bottom of your black screen, you get your list of participants, and then at the bottom of that screen you should see at the right hand side there a little button saying raise hand. And if you do that, and I'll show you now with mine, a little blue hand comes up next to your name, and that indicates to me or to anybody else who's monitoring these things that you want to say something. So we're going to, there we are. James has had a go at it. So we'll have a go at your blue hand now, if you can. Just click the button there. There we are. Elizabeth's up there. Yeah. Dick's up there. Sue. Maggie. Yeah. Ian. Yeah. Kate.
Was he able to go to France and come back without having to quarantine then?
Don't forget to keep your microphone muted, by the way. Okay, I think we're getting the hang of the blue hands, are we? Right. Okay, keep your microphones muted.
Anyway, I'm just about to start another Zoom thing with the NADA Community Energy AGM, dear. So all these things are happening on Zoom today.
Susan, if you can hear me, please do mute yourself.
Yeah, okay, that's a good idea.
On the bottom left-hand corner there. Okay, I think we take away our hands now, and let's get moving. So that's the raise hand function, and so we'll use that in the Q's and A's, and we might also use that in the voting if we come to some voting as well. Now, if you want to say something, make a comment silently, you can use the chat function. That's under the more. If you press more at the bottom of your screen, it says that you'll see a thing saying chat, and that comes a little window, and you can type stuff in there where it says type message here, and you can do that to a named person or to everyone. Usually it'll be to everyone, unless you want to pass a message in secret. Okay, I won't dwell too long on this, but that's the chat function. It's quite useful as well. And the other thing is, if your internet goes wobbly, and mine sometimes does because I've got a pretty bad connection here, you can improve things by cutting your video. So you stop your video like that, and that helps with your bandwidth. If you've got bandwidth problems, you can also make sure you're not running too many programs, internet programs. Anyway, that's the housekeeping. So we're aiming to finish by, where are we now? We're a little bit late. By hopefully by 7:30, 8:30, 9 o'clock. So now an hour and a half top whack. So let's hope we can stick to that. And now we're going to see if we can get on with the slides. So because we want to look at what the agenda is. So there we are, nice slide, which is done by Sue. This is very good. So just look at what we're planning to talk about this evening. So we're going to do the formal business to start with, and then we're going to, and that'll include, as you can see there, the chair's report and the accounts, where we want just your approval for those. And then we've got a resolution about the money we're going to want to allocate to the Community Benefit Fund, and then we're going to re-elect a couple of directors. And next slide, please, Sue. And then we get on to the more interesting stuff, really, in many ways, which is what we've been doing, how we've been getting along, what we're planning to do. We've got some exciting stuff in the pipeline, yes, a look ahead to finish up with. So that's the plan for this evening. So let's just get on to to introduce the team. There we are, as you can see them there. So it might be useful actually for each person to say something, so you can put a name to the face. So I don't know if that's going to work on the screen, but Tim, say something so we can say hello to everybody. Tim, you have to unmute yourself first, of course. He's there somewhere. Well, while we're waiting for
Right.
Tim.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, there we are.
Right, there we are.
Hopefully people can see you. So
Okay, I'll mute myself back again.
yeah, thanks very much. Maggie, great to hear from you.
I'm here. I'm here.
There's Maggie. Okay. Lucy is going to join us later. Kate is there.
I'm here. I'm here.
Oh, there's Lucy. Right. Hello, Lucy. And Kate is there somewhere as well.
Too.
Yes.
I'm here.
Excellent. And Jamie being swallowed by the flower.
Yeah, I'm here too.
Well done. And
Can
Sue?
you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I'm here. Hello.
Hello.
Okay. And Richard, you're there, aren't you, somewhere?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm really sorry. My video has decided to pack up. So I'm afraid you've just got a blank screen saying Richard Sites Manager. But I am here.
Excellent. And Emma, you're there too, aren't you? I saw you earlier on. You're probably muted. Emma Worth, are you there? Are you hearing me? Somewhere out in the ether?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here, Alan.
Ah, there she is. There she is. Great. Okay. Right, that's the team. So we're going on to the next slide. Oh, apologies, Sue. Who have you had apologies from?
We've got apologies from Susan, who's here. Adrian Phillips, Sarah Cowell, Graham Begg, Maurice Prendergast, Tom Burnett, and Caroline Plumtree.
Thanks very much. Great. Caroline's hovering in the background, I know. Okay, and the next one I think is probably the minutes of the last meeting. People should have received the minutes of the last meeting, which was back in July last year. So hopefully you've received those, and hope you've had a chance to look at those. And if you want to raise anything about those which isn't already covered in this evening's agenda, I don't think there are many points that aren't covered in this evening's agenda, but if you want to, you better press your participants button and raise your blue hand. Is Caroline wanting to say something? Or is that an errant blue hand there? I think Caroline probably doesn't mean to have a hand up there.
I think it's a leftover blue hand.
Yes, I think it's a vestigial blue hand. Okay. Any other blue hands there? No, this is all a bit clunky. I'm sorry about this. No, okay. So let's assume that you accept these minutes and we can adopt these minutes from last July. Thank you for that. Great. We're getting on famously here. The chair's overview. Just a few. Yes, you should have received my written report. But what I'll do is just go. I have to read this because my memory is not great. Anyway, just to say that obviously the last 6 months have been pretty strange and exceptional for all of us, and for all the wrong reasons. But like everybody else, of course, the NADA Community Energy has been kind of knocked sideways by the pandemic, and unfortunately, much of our development work that was going on, certainly in the last couple of months of the year in question, were kind of discombobulated by the crisis. But fortunately we've managed to pick up since then. So things are beginning to move again now, that I'm pleased to say. And because we rely on for our income on solar panels, thankfully the sun has continued to shine, which is good, because that means it's been working for us and it's been generating electricity for us, and that's all good stuff. And it also helps to pour energy into our coffers as well, so that's great. The solar panels have really worked very well. They've all worked very well in May of this year, exceptionally, but also they did pretty well throughout the whole of the year up to our accounting year, which finishes on the 31st of March 2020. So they've done very well there. Since during that accounting year, we've added 4 local schools to our portfolio with solar panels. That's Lehurst Swan School, which is in Salisbury. That was in June of 2019. St John's Primary School, Tisbury, Semley. I think there were 2 panels at Semley. Correct me if I'm wrong, somebody. Wiley Valley Primary School, and I think all those were all added during summer holidays last year. And that sort of completed our collection of schools then. And it was a lot of paperwork, a lot of work by Emma in driving that whole thing through. So huge thanks to Emma, but also to Martin Kemp at the Salisbury Diocese, because most of those schools are diocese schools. And Martin was very helpful in helping us wade through the paperwork, really, to get those installations there happening. And as I say, to Emma for really driving the whole thing forward. So huge thanks again. And Emma will be talking about that a little bit later on. But interesting, one of the schools we were hoping to have on board was Coombe Bissett and Primary School, and they decided not to go ahead. So we actually found ourselves with some monies left over, and we consulted with the membership, with you, our members, and you approved the idea of us adding, using that money to add quite a sizable second array of panels to the roof of Nectar Imports Limited, which is a commercial building at Berwick St Leonard. And we did that in December last year, and that has boosted our income quite a bit. So that was a good move in terms of income for the society. So here we are now in 2020, which actually is our 5th anniversary year. And we now have a total of 17 installations altogether, on 10 farm and commercial buildings and on 5 schools. And it's, it's a pretty impressive collection of panels, really. Now, those of you who invested in the first share offer, that's the farm buildings, the commercial buildings throughout the Nadder Valley, you should have received, hopefully, this year's part capital repayment plus interest. So hopefully you've had that little injection of cash into your bank accounts, which is, I'm sure that's pleasing. And also those who invested in our second share offer, that's the schools, Solar for Schools project, that was launched in November 2018. So it's young yet, but you should have received your first interest payment by now, hopefully. And you can look forward to the capital repayments beginning, I think, in 2022, if I've got that right. Okay, so just again, we'll hear more about that later on, but now just moving quickly to our development program. You probably remember at last year's AGM, we mentioned that we were applying to the Power to Change fund for which is part of the National Lottery, to fund a pilot project to evaluate the viability of an electric car club for Tisbury. And I'm sure by now you must know, because you've talked about it quite a bit, that we were indeed awarded quite a substantial grant to get that project going, and it was doing very well. Our project team, which was Gustavo Montes de Oca, Catherine Allenson and Julie Phillips, were doing very well, making very good progress with the early planning of this until, of course, the lockdown hit us, and that brought everything to a grinding halt, which is a great shame. Very disappointing. But as I said before, we have begun work again. Things are happening. Progress with the charge points, progress with the research, and it's all moving forward. And you'll hear from Julie and perhaps Catherine a little later on. Just another development to mention quickly, that is our renewable heating for schools project, which in the spring of this year, Sue Reid, our company secretary, and Emma Worth, our project manager, got some funding from the Rural Community Energy Fund. And it's a very exciting project to look at some of the schools that were on our solar panels project, who were very interested in replacing the rather old and tired heating systems based on fossil fuels and to heat pumps if possible, and improving their energy efficiency. So we'll hear again from Emma looking into that project. Nearly finished. We're hoping to build on the pilot work we did last year that Kate Clark was leading on installing air source heat pumps, well, in one particular fuel poor home, that pilot project, and we want to build on that. And as you probably know, the government's recently announced a Green Homes grant scheme, potentially quite exciting. So we want to, again, perhaps using those monies and some, if we can get some match funding, try and build up an advisory service for people who are in fuel poor homes, so that they can get all the grants that are going, basically, to try and become sort of advisors to and facilitators to people who want to have a warmer, greener heating system. Our monthly green drinks has been going well. We hear from Maggie later on about the green drinks and other outside connections. And finally, just a quick note about some changes among the directors since the last AGM. Ralph Perry Robinson, you may remember, he stepped down after 4 years to focus on other work, and we'd like to give a big thank you to Ralph for all his expertise. He very much in the early days helping to get NADA Community Energy going, but also more recently helping to secure that money for the car club pilot project. And also from the 1st of January this year, Tim Plumtree passed on the mantle of chairing this the society to me, just in time to face the strangest several months that any of us care to remember. So thank you, Tim, for that. That's great. And finally, just on behalf of our board of directors, just a big thank you to you, to all our members, to our supporters, to our donors and sponsors, for your enthusiasm, dedication, and we all want to see NADA Community Energy going from strength to strength, and let's aim high, basically. So thanks very much for that. And now, having spent rather a long time on my chair's report, I think I'm not quite sure whether we have to formally accept the chair's report, but if anybody wants to, I think the way we'll do this is if you don't want to accept the chair's report, or if you have a comment to make, bearing in mind that we're going to be talking about all these things in more depth later, do raise a hand using the blue hand button now. So let's see if you're okay about that. If not, we can press on because we've got quite a lot to get through.
Alan?
Yes, is it Julie?
Tim's had his hand raised for quite a while. I didn't know whether he wanted to say something.
Did he? Where is that? I can't see it. But anyway, Tim, do say something, Tim. I think we thought that was a leftover hand from Caroline. Tim, do you want to say something?
Unmute myself. No, I don't. And Caroline hasn't been here for ages. I don't know how her hand has remained.
Just if you touch, say unraised hand or
I've just got rid of it.
Oh, that's gone. Look, it's gone.
Hold on. I'll mute myself again then.
Pop back into the teapot. Thank you very much. Okay, I think we've got a clear round there, so that's great. Thank you very much for that. We accept the chairman's report. Then we move on to the accounts. Then Tim, you're on, so you'll have to unmute yourself again, Tim.
I'll unmute myself.
Yeah.
Have we got there already? Right.
Yeah.
Now the accounts were sent out in full to all of you. So you've all had a chance to see them, and if there are any questions, obviously I'll be happy to answer them, possibly assisted by Sue. I was going to skip over this one actually because this is explained in greater detail on the last page of the accounts, which is page 10. Sue, can we go straight to that, or have we got to go through the whole lot? Not that one.
I don't have page 10 here.
You don't?
No, I only have these two.
Ah, right. Well, let's go back to the other one. I'll do it from page 10, even if you can we go back to the profit and loss? Right. Turnover consists obviously of the electricity we've sold, which came to 72,000, which is not shown as a subheading there, which is 5% down on last year, which is just off my screen. I don't know about yours, which was 76,148. It was down mainly because the way we do our billings, which is on the first day of each quarter, it obviously, as our year end was 31st of March, the income from the last quarter didn't get included because it was only billed on the 1st of April. So that isn't the whole picture. And I think next year, Sue, we might see if we can get the accountants to agree to accrue that so we show a full year's income instead of 3/4 of one.
It was also a slightly cloudier year.
I can't remember, was it?
Yeah.
Anyway, the important thing is, especially when you look at the small loss that we made, so far this year, we're up to 75% of the full last year. That's not very good English, is it? We've made 53,000 so far against 72,000 for the whole of last year. So we're cracking along at great speed, partly because of the hot weather and because of the panels have all been performing extremely well. Not without some cost. As you can, no, you can't see, can you? The administrative expense is quite a lot higher for a variety of reasons, and also depreciation is high, of course, because there's more to depreciate. So we go back to the balance sheet. If you're all with me, you'll see that yes, called up share capital, 579,825. That's down 33,000 from last year, 613,501. That's because we repaid some of the principal, 33,000, to the members in the first issue. So that's reduced our capital. I don't think there's anything else there. Anyone? I don't know whether it's easier to ask questions as we go along or wait till the end if you have any. The next slide, Sue, which have you got? Is it? No.
We said we didn't want to put all of them up because it was all a bit
Right.
much.
Which is the next one you've got?
Just these two.
Okay. Well, I mean, the most important things that happened is we paid principal, as Alan said, on the first project as on schedule, and interest on both of them on schedule. We have depreciated the panels, which is a huge thing on the expense side, and it's all going along gangbusters. Any questions? No. Well, Mr. Chairman, people may think of questions as we go along.
Yeah, we'll have
Otherwise,
we'll have an opportunity later on, but I think that was pretty clear. But broadly speaking, things are looking good, aren't they, Tim? And,
yes,
and we're very happy with that. Okay, which takes us on to the next item, which sort of follows on from that, which is our resolution. And we wanted to, last year we put £5,000 into the community fund, and we wanted to up that if possible, because if we feel that the finances can bear it quite well. So we're proposing to put £7,000 into the community fund this year. We haven't yet decided where to put that money, but we can decide on that over the next few weeks and months. But basically, this is the amount of money we're proposing to allocate. Tim, I don't know whether you want to comment on that, but we feel this is something which we can bear. We had a very good period of sun in May anyway of this year, so and that's injected quite a bit of money into our account. So we think we're looking fairly healthy this year. Of course, we never quite know what the impact of COVID is going to be, And we might hear a little bit about that from Richard later on. But all in all, we feel that the society can bear this allocation to the community fund, and we'd like to do that. So I guess I'm asking people, if anyone objects to the idea of putting £7,000 into the community fund, could they please raise their hands now with a little button on the bottom right hand corner there of their participants list. And I'm scrolling up and down to see if any blue hands have appeared. No? Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much. That's carried. Thank you. So we move on to the next item, which is item 7. What's the next item? Yes, election of director. Sorry, I was looking at my crib sheet. So there we are. This nice picture of Tim, nice picture of Kate, both of whom I think have done about 3 years each, something like that. Anyway, what happens is that every year the two directors who have served longest step down, and if they want to, they put themselves up again for re-election. And so there we are. So again, I'll put this to the vote. If anybody has any objection to re-electing Tim and Kate, please use your blue hand. Okay, can't see any problems there. So that's good. Gone. Carried. Thank you very much for that. Site manager report. This is sites manager report. So Richard Eccleston, are you there? Because this is your there's an exciting video in this next section. So I hope it works.
I'm here. I am definitely here. You can't see me, but I'm here.
Excellent. Off you go, Richard.
Okay, so sadly, Jamie had recorded some lovely music to go with this video, which is been shot by a BBC cameraman who we were very fortunate to have offer to do a film about Nada Community Energy for us. So last week, earlier this week, in that beautiful sunshine, one of the things he did was fly this miniature drone over the Nectar site, which you can see here. That you can see now is the first array we put up, and just coming into view now is the second installation at Nectar. So we've got 100 kilowatts of panels up on that site there, which is very exciting. And being a commercial premises like they are, they're a wholesale drinks place. They actually use a lot of that electricity on site. So we generate income both from the feed-in tariff and from the sale of electricity, and indeed from the export. So moving on then, this table here is our first share offer sites, the 10 commercial sites that Alan mentioned earlier. And what we're looking at is the generation of electricity by those panels on those sites there. The MCS projection is the Micro Generation Certification Scheme projection. That's what the installers reckon that the array will produce in a year when they install it. And so that's our benchmark that we work to. And you'll see in the next two columns, we've got what we did in the financial year 18-19, which was a very sunny year, a very successful year, and what we achieved in the 19-20 financial year, which was slightly down on the previous year, but well in excess, nearly 11% better than what was predicted. So our installations are performing well, our original ones. And that, and moving on then, I'll come back to the one that isn't performing so well. But this one here these are our schools. Now, they haven't actually been in place for a full financial year yet, all of them. So what I've done is just given you what they are producing over a rolling year. And you can see again that as compared to the MCS projection, they're all generating at or above what was predicted. So with those sites, it's about 12% over the projection. Don't have enough data yet for the second installation at Nectar. That hasn't been in for a year yet. Just the other things to say about what I can report is that I am able to check all of the sites on a daily basis using apps and so on to make sure that our that we're always online, as it were. We're always on stream in terms of generating electricity. And when something goes slightly awry and I notice that we're not generating for some reason, usually what it means is that a breaker has tripped on site, and I can whiz out there and reset it, and we're back to normal without losing any generation worth speaking of. So there's that. The other thing that I do regularly, as Alan mentioned earlier, is bill our customers every quarter for the electricity that they've used on site from what we've generated on their roofs, and make sure that we get our income stream from that as well. The only other thing to report really is that the one site that isn't performing particularly well, Bridsall Farm, that's down about 10% on what the projection is. And the reason for that is it's a dairy farm where they do a lot of straw chopping. And because of the shallow angle of the panels, what tends to happen is a lot of dust and debris settles on them. And that means that they do need cleaning every couple of years. And of course, we were not able to do that this year because of the lockdown. So that will be done next year now. So unless anyone has any questions, that's my report.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Richard. I see that Dick Budden has a question. Oh, Dick?
It says, can you hear me?
Yes, can
Can you hear me? Yes, good. Richard, well done. That's great. Good. But I want to know what the trick is. So either MCS projected on the downside, if so, why? Or you're doing better than the MCS projection, in which case, what's the trick?
That's a really good question, Dick. My personal view is, and Emma may be able to back me up on this or tell me I'm completely wrong, but I think in most cases, the MCS projection tends to be on the conservative side. So that's my view. I think the one exception to that might actually be Bridsall. I think they might have overestimated that one, which is why it looks worse than perhaps it is. It's the only kind of benchmark we've got to work on. I mean, obviously, you can see we're also showing what we've done year on year. So, and I think what we can see from the difference between 18-19 and 19-20 is just a matter of sunshine. Obviously, the more sunshine we get, the more we generate. So, you know, both years were pretty good sunshine-wise. But 18-19, I think if you remember, we did have a pretty exceptional year, and you know, it'd be great if we can match that. And maybe climate change means that we do get a bit more generation. Who knows? That wasn't a very good answer, Dick. I'm sorry, but that's the best I can do.
That's fine. Sounds like you need to be careful who you choose to get your MCS projection from. No, that's very good. That's very good. Thanks, Richard.
Okay. Any other comments or questions for Richard? Can't see. So, Dick, if you could take your hand away, that'd be nice. Sorry, that sounds a bit odd, doesn't it? Any other hands? No. Okay. Thanks very much, then, Richard. So now we move on to the Solar for Schools project with Emma. And somebody's whispering, they may need to mute themselves.
Okay, I've unmuted myself.
Okay.
Thank you, Alan. Yeah, so the Solar for Schools project. I am reading this, I'm afraid. So, and it is brief. This time last year, I had just completed handover of the Solar for Schools project to the NADA Community Energy Board. And I'm pleased to say today that the benefits are being realised by the schools, by the NADA Community Energy members, and by the wider community. I say just because on the Sunday before term started, some of the scaffolding was yet to strike, and there were a few nail-biting moments. However, I'm pleased to report we were able to deliver the solar PV systems on time and on budget. But scheduling and costs were not the only success criteria. As with every project, there were issues that arose, but because stakeholders were working towards a common goal, these were managed and resolved. Thanks to the support of school heads, governors, business managers, Martin Kemp in particular, as Alan's already mentioned, at the Salisbury Diocese Board of Education, and the NADA Community Energy Board, St Peter's, Lea Swan, Semley, Tisbury and Wiley schools are all benefiting from cheaper, greener power with the solar arrays monitored by NADA Community Energy, as Richard has just reported on. There was a surplus of funds from the share offer, and in January 2020, we were also able to install an additional 50 kilowatts at Nectar Imports before the feed-in tariff ended, making a total of 100 kilowatts at that site. The solar contractors, Empire Energy and Energy Tech, were another critical factor in the success of this project. Highly experienced and professional, and actually this may also go to answer Richard Budden's question in a bit more depth. Highly experienced and professional, they produce optimal designs and install only the best quality materials, so you can be sure that your solar arrays are generating with maximum efficiency. And obviously Richard's report has just confirmed that. Last, but definitely not least, I would personally like to thank Sue Reed, NCE's Company Secretary, who ran the project office with such efficiency and whose tireless support was invaluable. Thank you, Sue.
Thank you, Emma. So any comments or questions for Emma on the Solar for Schools project, which has been a great success? Not yet. Any hands up at all? No? We're all happy with that?
So it's me again.
Yes, it's you again. So we're moving on to the Renewable Heat for Schools project.
Okay, Renewable Heat for Schools. So following the success of the Solar for Schools project, NC made a bid for Rural Community Energy Grant funding to conduct a feasibility study into supplying renewable heat in the schools that have been equipped with solar, decreasing their reliance on fossil fuels and thus reducing their carbon footprint. Schools are at the heart of our community. So this is in alignment with NCE's mission statement. The fact that NCE had a track record for greening the schools and an established relationship with senior leadership teams was noted. And in March 2020, after a rigorous tendering process, we learned that we'd been successful in our bid. 3 days later, the government announced the lockdown. However, we have been able to make good progress with the study through using an agile project management approach rather than a linear one where tasks are very dependent on preceding activities. Our consultants and contractors have worked closely with us in this regard and tried always to accommodate this flexible methodology. The heating surveys and subsequent reports have revealed some very interesting data. While the rationale was to focus on the schools that had already received solar arrays from NCE, Salisbury Diocese asked us to include St Gregory's in Marnell, Dorset, which the Rural Community Energy Fund categorised as within our geographical remit. St Gregory's has been allocated schools' capital allowance funding to upgrade its oil boiler and existing pipework and radiators, some of which date back to 1910. And you should be able to see there on the slide, you can probably see there's beautiful column radiators and single pipes there, which, as I say, they've been there since 1910. And so what happens in this school is 1 minute you have a classroom that's boiling hot and the next minute freezing cold, and children have to be sent home sometimes. And I'm afraid that's not uncommon amongst some of these schools. We have been working collaboratively with the diocesan surveyor and the school resources governor to create a scheme that improves the internal heat distribution system so that it works optimally with a ground source heat pump. The board are considering a share offer for this project, so I won't go into more detail here, but I think you'll learn more from the board in due course. Thank you. Oh, there we are. That's us at St. Peter's School, which is the first school we put the solar array on back in June 2018. That's the engineers and the school site manager looking at the plant. And rather astonishingly, this school, as I say, built in 2018 and on the gas grid, rather than having to rely on oil, is their heating costs are 3 times what some of our Victorian era schools are paying for their energy. So that has been one of the rather shocking findings. And on that note, that's me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Emma. That's great. Any comments or questions on the renewable heating for schools project, which is all very exciting. The idea is, isn't it, Emma, is that if we can show it by the feasibility study that there could be some return on investment, that we maybe move towards some sort of share offer at some point.
Yes,
perhaps?
well, the renewable heat incentive, it's a similar sort of model to the commercial feed-in tariff. It is a 20-year contract for financial return, which is still it's still in operation, but will be ending officially in March 2021. Although the Chancellor has confirmed, I think we can say now, that where we have a project that is a shovel-ready project by March 2021, we'd have another year to get it installed.
Right, okay. Any comments or questions for Emma? That's all very good. Thank you very much, Emma. That's great.
Thank you.
And just before we move on, I've just remembered that after the presentation of the accounts by Tim, we do need to formally accept those, because those accounts have to be submitted to the Financial Conduct Authority, who are our regulators. So can I just check that everyone is happy to approve or accept those, or adopt, whatever the word is, those accounts formally? Can I just put that out to people to see if put your hand up if you don't want to. Okay, I think we can say that yes, we can formally accept or adopt, or whatever the word is, those accounts. Thank you very much indeed. Just one other quick little notice, as it were. We are recording this AGM for people who couldn't make it, so they can look at it on the website. Can I assume that we're all happy about having this AGM recorded? If there are any objections, please say so. Again, I think people are okay with that. Lovely, thanks very much indeed. Great, well, we're batting along so fast now, good Lord. It's time now for the Tisbury Electric Car Club Tech Pilot Project with Julie. Julie, are you there?
I am getting a few messages that my internet connection's unstable. So I'll plough on, but I've messaged Catherine, and she'll take over for me if I suddenly disappear. I do apologise. Okay, so Sue, do you want to? So I'm going to talk to you about the Electric Car Club. I'm going to keep it quite basic and tell you who we are, what we're doing, and why we're doing it. And there'll be an opportunity for contacting us afterwards if you have any questions, or there's a different kind of aspect you want to know about. So essentially, these are the people involved, either through the subboard or project team. So obviously Alan, Margaret, James and Sue. And then the project team itself is Gustavo, Catherine and myself. And the project is funded by Power to Change, which is in turn set up by the National Lottery, or the big lottery. And Power to Change essentially is an organisation that's set up to grow and support community businesses in England. And our remit, in terms of reference, are to design and pilot a rural all-electric car club and to develop a viable business model for a sustainable rural car club business. So we want to increase awareness of electric vehicles, improve the infrastructure for electric vehicles, develop people's transport options, especially in a rural environment, lower transport costs for people, reduce carbon emissions, and generally support the transition to electric vehicles, which I think we all know is coming. So essentially, prior to the lockdown, we completed phase 1 and 2, which involved project planning and setting up for the pilot. But unfortunately, a previously planned launch in April, which was possibly the worst month we could have chosen, obviously was delayed, and the project came to a standstill for lockdown. However, we're back working again now, but with agreement from the funder, we need to review the environment now that the COVID-19 is with us. So at the moment we're in phase 3A. We're looking at what the impact of the virus will have in terms of how we manage the cars and car share. We're looking at demand in light of how people's circumstances may have changed during lockdown or as a result of lockdown, and even maybe their transport use itself may have changed. And we're also looking at the theoretical basis, whether there's been a change in terms of government policy and guidelines on electric vehicles. So that's what we're doing at the moment. Once we've reported back to the funder about those things, we're hoping to get the go-ahead to launch the car club later this year, or the January 2021. So once we can launch, we can pilot the club, and once we piloted the club, we'll be in a position to provide a business model and feedback to the funders. So a bit more information about what we're actually planning at the moment. So we're looking at charging point installations at the NADA Centre and the village car park off the avenue. Sorry, Sue, can you go back? Thank you. We're currently investigating insurance options and looking at membership terms and conditions. And I'm doing a research study in terms of market demand with people as a result of the COVID environment. So in terms of that research, we're looking at government regulations and taking advice from environmental health. And we have a risk assessment in place, but as you can imagine, that's very likely to change between now and the pilot as government regulations change frequently. We're also monitoring the government policy on transition, which seems to have speeded up actually in the last few months. So targets for transition to EVs are changing to bring them forward, actually. Transport trends, as well as COVID, has had a massive impact on the use of public transport, particularly, and still continues to, although less so on private cars. And we've also been researching the performance of established rural car clubs that continue to operate during lockdown. Generally, car clubs and the cars are considered private hire, in a private hire vehicle, and were classified as essential travel, so weren't prevented from opening during lockdown. And then lastly, again, I'm doing the research project on local market demand. So I'm interviewing households in Tisbury and trying to get a sample group similar to the socio-demographic information in the 2011 census. So far, I've done about 70 interviews with people. I'm still looking for volunteers. If you haven't done it, please email me. And I think we can go to the next one. So I put together some interim results from what I've done so far, and it's really pleasing to see that 91% of the people who've completed the survey think it's a good idea. 77% of them are already on a mailing list, and 47% have expressed an interest to join the club. The most popular thing they like about the car club is its benefit for the environment. And the second most popular like is that it's a rental service in a rural environment. The most common reservation is actually that the demand for the cars could be too high, and then it might be difficult to book them or get them when you want them. And very interestingly, only 4.5% of respondents mentioned any concern over coronavirus at all. So if you want to know any more, you can contact us through community@nadearth.org.uk. If you want to take part in the research, you could win a 3 days hire after we've launched. To join the mailing list, you can keep up to date with how the project's going and where we are, and to express your interest in joining. If you do that, you can qualify for early bird discounts. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, and we've got a website, which is there. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Julia. That's great. I don't know whether Catherine wants to add anything in terms of the charge points, or Catherine is our project manager. I don't know if there's anything you want to add, Catherine. I can't see whether you're saying yes or no because I've plotted my
Thank you,
screen.
Alan. Just to say, the charge point infrastructure is going along swimmingly. We have managed to collaborate with another community-based organisation in the north, which have benefited from an Innovate UK grant. And because of that, we've managed to save ourselves about £6,500 on the installation of the charge point infrastructure, which essentially means we can put in 2 charge points at the NADA car park, the lower car park site, and as well as a site up at the NADA Centre itself. So that will be coming soon, and more from Jules on the launch closer to the time. Very exciting. Thanks, Jules.
Thanks, Catherine. That's great. So, are there any comments or questions on the car club? It is all rather exciting. We're just hoping and praying, your fingers crossed, that that the coronavirus situation doesn't suddenly get worse again. Elizabeth, do you want to ask a question or make a comment?
Yeah, hi. First of all, my screen's gone really weird, so I can see the slides and I can see me, but I can't see the rest of you. I just wanted to ask, I'm not quite clear if these charging points are only for the car club's cars, or whether you're also making provision for other people to charge at them. For example, I've just been staying in a village in West Sussex where there were no public charging points at all for my car, and I had to go to a nearby hotel. So I wondered what provision you were making. I was up at the NADA centre, and the charge point there seems to, I'm not quite sure if it says, I think, staff and visitors, and I'm not quite sure if it means visitors to the village or visitors to the NADA centre. So are you providing for visitors at your specific car club charge points? And do you know what the situation is up at the NADA centre for visitors to the village as opposed to the centre?
Thanks, Elizabeth. Yes, we are. But Catherine, would you like to answer that specific point?
Yes, so at the NADA Centre, I understand that means visitors to the NADA Centre, but I happen to know that most of the people who have an electric car in Tisbury use it as well without any issue. We are putting in 2 charging points down at the lower car park. One will be exclusively for Tisbury Electric Car Club and its car, and the second point will be for any member of the public to use.
Absolutely great. Thank you very much.
And Catherine, the one up at the NADA Centre, is that also a double point charge point?
That's TBC, depending on the price that we can negotiate. I think it will probably only be a single one at this time, partly because its location is too close to an existing public charge point, i.e. outside the gate, and ours, and this is the main point, will be inside the gate and therefore not accessible to the public.
Right.
Actually, I'm just trying to get my brain round who do you pay if you charge at the charge points?
Yes, you sort of download an app and have it linked to your bank account, so you sort of do a swipe thing, as you would do in any shop with your bank card.
So will the club get the payments from the club charge points?
Or it's a little more complicated than that, Elizabeth. Actually, it goes through the leasing arrangement with the other community benefit organisation. So they make a small amount on the regular electricity charge from the electricity supplier, but it would still be a lot less than a commercial charge pointing station, say at a motorway service stop, which is a much higher markup.
When the car club car is charging, who pays that? Is that the club that pays that? So yes. It's fully charged for the next user? Yes,
that's correct.
Right.
And they pay, we're yet to work out the finer details of the charging model, but there'll be a subscription charge to join, and there will be an early bird discount, as Jules just mentioned, so get in there early. And then there will be a hire charge and potentially a mileage charge, which will equate to the charging charge. So whichever way you want to.
And will you be able to, I mean, I should say that I'm already an EV owner. I have an electric car myself. But will you be able to charge the car club yourself elsewhere when you're driving it?
Yes, of course.
Right.
That's an important point. If you're going to Scotland.
But then you'll deliver it back possibly to base. With charge on it that you've paid for. So is that all covered in the charging?
Well, we will know how many miles you've travelled. So there will be a sort of equation, an algorithm which works that out, so that it's equitable depending on whether you've driven 3 miles or 300 miles.
And takes into account if you put juice into the car yourself.
I imagine that it will tell us that as well, yes.
Oh, well, enjoy.
A lot of work.
Okay.
A lot of work with the slide rule on all this stuff.
Yes.
Any other comments or questions for either Jules or Catherine? I'm looking to see if any other blue hands are going up anywhere. No. Okay. But we're all very excited about that. And as I say, fingers crossed that it doesn't get held up again. Great, thanks to both of you. Let's move on to the green drinks. Now, Maggie Paul. Are you there, Maggie?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Well, as always, green drinks have been continuing. They've been going really since before NCE was formed, really, but certainly for the last 5 years, mostly in the boot in, up until COVID, clearly. We kind of obviously put things on hold and then decided to do green drinks on Zoom this year. But in the past, last year, we had a variety of topics for discussion. Sometimes it's just as and when people turn up, they want to raise issues. And sometimes we've designated a particular session to, you know, special items, for example, electric cars or electric vehicles. We've obviously looked at pesticides in Tisbury, which was a big one. I was very concerned about the use of glucosamide.
Glyphosate. Glyphosate, sorry. So, I mean, I've approached the parish council about that. It is a big thing, and we want to try and pursue that big time. Electric cars and or vehicles has been a big thing. We talked about electric buses as well. Tree planting we've talked about. We haven't got much further with that, but since prior to lockdown, we were talking about doing some more tree planting up near the a community orchard up behind the NADA Centre. It's something we can look at again. Insulation and passive house building. Passive house is really a formula for you know, extremely good insulation on new housing, so that the heat demand is very, very small. We've had talks and discussions with people who've already got very, very good eco housing, some of whom are here today as visitors at our AGM. Just to say again that the green drinks is not exclusive to NADA Community Energy. It's something that we started to include anybody that would like to join. And we've had a lot of interest from very different people. We've looked at heat pump technology, and obviously that's kind of raised the interest in pursuing that in terms of future projects. And we've been looking at fuel poverty issues as well, which has been something that we're going to be considering in future projects. It's all about networking as well with other groups, which has been very positive. We had a very good talk by Chris Walford, who you see mentioned there, who was working on a fuel poverty project in North Devon. And he came and talked to us about what he'd been doing. And so we might be pursuing something along those lines to work with fuel poverty in this area. We also had a talk on Zoom again with a gentleman who works for Bristol Energy, who was looking at fuel pumps and the technology of such. And that was a really interesting session we had. Again, back in lockdown, probably May time, I think. We've had obviously talks with Community Land Trust, with Ian, who's also here tonight. Another networking interest is that we've joined, NADA Community Energy have joined something called the Wiltshire Climate Alliance, which is a newly formed organisation, an umbrella organisation, which includes many different community energy projects, or as it were, climate interest projects all over Wiltshire, including as far up as Bradford-on-Avon, Swindon and Westbury, many organisations, and the networking from that has been very positive, and it's very good to be part of that. And I'm going to quite a lot of their Zoom meetings, which is interesting. Apart from which, as an offshoot of that, NADA Community Energy were involved in an eco-fete in Salisbury only last Saturday, which was called People in the Park. And it was a very successful day. First time
that such a thing had been happening in Salisbury. We did one in Tisbury, you may remember, about 3 years ago. But Salisbury had just done theirs, first one, last Saturday, and that was put on by Salisbury's Transition City. And there was something like 20 stalls representing many eco projects all around Salisbury area. And there was also a stage with speeches and talks from many different people, including Jeremy Nettles from Wiltshire Council and the local Salisbury District Council. It was very well attended, several hundred people came. I think this is all about us networking, and we were there with a store and display, which was very well received, and a lot of interest there on what we have been doing, and also a lot of interest in our car club, which was very, very good. So really the Green Drinks goes from strength to strength. Anybody's welcome. They don't have to be members of Nada Community Energy. We often get visitors from Salisbury and surrounding area. And the next one is on the 29th. At the moment, again, back on Zoom because of the new rule of 6. But as soon as that eases up again, we would go back to meeting at the Boot Inn. Thank you.
Thank you, Maggie. That's great. There's lots going on there, and
Yeah.
it's all very exciting. Yeah, loads going on. So, yes, get that date of the 29th in your diaries. I must make sure it's in mine. But anyway, right, moving on to our last report, really, and that's on fuel poverty. And this is just in very early stages at the moment, but this is work which came out of the work that Kate Clark was leading on last time, as I mentioned before, with the pilot project in a fuel poor home in Tisbury. I believe it was in Tisbury, correct me if I'm wrong, Kate. And the learnings from that, really, we want to build on that, and we also want to link in with, if possible, with the Green Homes Grant scheme that's just been launched, and I think applications open at the end of this month. But there's only a small window of opportunity there, because I believe the applications close at the end of March next year. So it's like a 6-month mad dash, really, everyone falling over themselves to try and get their homes assessed and to get their changes to their loft insulation or their double glazing or whatever it is, all that sort of stuff, making sure that the heat loss is minimized. But also, if they want a heat pump of any sort, and there's a picture of a typical air source heat pump fan there, if they want to get that going, then they're going to have to get their skates on, because it's going to be a mad dash to try and get in the window that we've got available. But what we are hoping to do is to act as a kind of advisory facilitator type service, if possible. And we're not quite sure how to go about that yet, but we're looking into that, and we're learning from other outside people, as Maggie's mentioned. But at this point, I'm just wondering whether either Kate or Lucy or both want to add anything there as to how we might take this sort of work forward. We're hoping to get some funding from outside sources, and as I say, possibly build on the Good Homes Grant, the Green Homes Grant, if we can. But I don't know whether Kate or Lucy want to add anything at this point.
Kate, I know you wanted to say something. I don't know if you're there, but maybe while I wait for you, yeah, just to add.
No, I'm here.
Okay, you go first.
No, I'm here. I just wanted to say that obviously we've now received the assignment of rights for the first heat pump project, and are receiving the RHI for that, which is really good. And you know, as Alan said, we're trying to find more funding and increase the community fund. But there's not really much more to say about that, apart from we've learned from the first project, and now we're just basically trying to build up the funds. Lucy, have you got anything to say?
Yeah, I just add two things. So one is just, I just want to say credit to Kate, because it was a huge amount of work to get the assignment of rights. So what that meant essentially was that is a legal, quite a dense legal contract that enabled us to have the grant payment from the government, that is the incentive scheme to try and encourage people to install these devices, that we would get paid that grant instead of the household, because we paid for the technology. It was a very technical, complicated process, and as far as we know, we were the first community energy organisation that has ever done that. So Kate did that for free out of the goodness of her heart and went through all the process of that. So I just want to say credit to Kate for that, really, because she's also created something that other community energy organisations can use there, that model contract. And then, as she said, I mean, with 7,000 in our community fund, we can't do many more heat pumps. So what we're trying to think about is how can we make sure that this new grant that's becoming available from the government, how do we make sure it isn't just the well-off households that can access that? How can we make sure that people in fuel poverty who really might benefit from that new grant that Alan mentioned, and how can we help that as a community energy organisation? Because if we just use our community fund to pay for the installation, it's not going to go very far. So that's why with the options we're looking at, as Kate said, we're looking at whether we can raise some more funds or whether we can just support fuel poverty homes to just know about the scheme and know that it exists, signpost them to it. So hopefully you'll agree that's a good focus for us, and that's what we'll be working at over the next few months, how best to do that. If anyone's got any brainwaves, we're open to ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. So it's a kind of watch this space situation. But any comments or questions for either Kate or Lucy on how we're hoping to help to tackle fuel poverty in the Nada Valley, of which there is a lot, of course. You know, there's an awful lot of people struggling with their heating bills, and it's going to be probably worse this year because of all the privations as a result of COVID. So yeah, any comments or questions for Kate or Lucy? Not at this stage. Can't see any blue hands going up there. But generally people think it's a good idea. Just nod your heads. I hope you do. Okay. Well, we've now pretty well got ourselves to we've now got it says any other business, but really I think we're at the point where you know, this is kind of open space. So if anybody wants to throw anything at all onto the table, as it were, or into the room, please do so now. Just in fact, at this stage, I think you can probably just unmute yourself and say something rather than fiddle about with a blue hand. So if anybody wants to dive in at this point, this is a good time to do it.
I have a very general question, Alan. Dick Budden here. Anybody can hear me?
Yeah.
And that is this. Do any of you have a view of how activities like this are going on around the country? I'm tremendously impressed with what you've achieved, what has been achieved here over the last 5 years. You know, you're growing great guns, as you said earlier. How does this compare with what's happening throughout the rest of the country? Anybody know?
Well, Lucy, I know is connected certainly in the Wessex Community Energy Network. So I don't know whether you've got a comment to make on that, Lucy. And Maggie, of course, has already talked about some of the other work going on elsewhere. But Lucy.
So I'm actually writing a report that tries to answer that very question. It's going to be published next month with an organisation called Local Trust. It's one of the lottery outfits, and a think tank called the Institute for Public Policy Research. And yeah, so the report was commissioned to try and look at what is the scope of community action taking place in the UK at the moment, what kind of range of activities. So it's not just community energy organisations, but some of the voluntary groups that Maggie mentioned, the transition towns. I mean, there's a lot. I think it's a short answer, but specifically on community energy, you might be interested to have a look. There's an umbrella body, yes, the one that Alan mentioned for Wessex, but there's also a national body, a national community energy body that kind of shows you what's happening. And then the grant that we got for the electric car club, that grant also gave grants to, I don't know, Catherine, can you remember how many other, was it 11 in total? I can't remember now. Other community energy organisations to innovate their business models and do something more than solar installations. So yeah, so I think there's quite a lot, but I think we're maybe unusual in that we're doing quite a lot across a number of different things. But I don't know, others might, Maggie might have some thoughts.
I think that there are various organisations all over the place, and certainly through the Wiltshire Climate Alliance, I've heard a lot about what other people are doing, you know, even in small towns and villages in the north of Wiltshire, from heat pumps to solar panels to insulation, but on perhaps a smaller scale than we're doing. And I know that there's a lot of stuff happening in Bristol, and obviously Totnes is well known for innovative energy stuff going on. But, you know, I think the thing about us is that we've got a very good name, we've got a very good reputation now. And I think, I'm hoping we'll go from strength to strength and come up with some more interesting ideas.
Yep, and also worth mentioning Innovate UK, isn't it? Who are running a series of webinars which are excellent, and those are going on through the rest of this month and through October. So if you look at the Innovate UK website, you can check those out. And I'm just wondering, Sue, if you can think of any other webinar. There are other series of webinars as well that we've been dipping into, but I don't know whether Sue wants to add anything there. Anyway, while Sue's thinking, any other ideas or thoughts or things that people want to throw into the ring at this stage? I think we've done very well. We're well in time.
Wessex Water are doing webinars, and
yes.
so are Southern Electric, Scottish and Southern Electric. So the utilities basically are doing a lot now.
Right. Okay.
Question of finding the time to look at them all.
Yes, it is. That's right. That is indeed the problem. Elizabeth, do you want to say something?
I just wondered, seeing as you're on the production side, is it in fact the case that the cost of renewable energy is falling? This is not the impression I'm getting from my energy bills, who tell me it keeps going up, although they're purely renewable supplier.
Who can answer that one, I wonder?
But say again, Elizabeth, what did you mean?
Well, what I mean is that I keep being told that although my energy supplier is purely renewables, the cost is going up. But
who's your energy supplier?
Bulb.
Bulb.
So they are, I think, I mean, Emma could probably, or Richard could probably answer this, but I think, you know, the way it works is aren't they? So they don't actually own their own renewable energy.
No, they don't.
So that's why the cost is not going down, because it's, you know, they're buying from the grid. But I don't know, Richard or Emma might have you want to come back on that?
Just dive in. Yeah, Richard.
Richard here. I mean, the whole way that we do energy in the UK is rigged, I would argue, towards the big players. So essentially everybody has to buy from the wholesale market, whether they're generating renewable energy or not. So I think there's only two companies that actually generate their own and sell 100% renewable, and that's Good Energy and Ecotricity. But you know, they're relatively small fish in a very, very rigged market. So that's why our energy keeps going up. And I think, Elizabeth, what you're hearing is the cost of installing renewable energy is, the capital costs are going down and down, particularly for wind and particularly for offshore wind, which is good news, because that means that it is helping the transition to fossil-free electricity generation, which is where we need to get to. But right now, that doesn't mean that we're going to see a fall in the cost that we pay, the customer pays, because it is in the grip of the big six still.
I mean, I think that's very interesting because although, you know, in theory, I'm very pleased that I'm very pleased that in theory I'm getting my electricity from a purely renewable supplier. Indeed, I was ferociously challenged by somebody. How on earth could it possibly be the case, seeing that they can only get their energy from the grid? So are these people, other companies who say they're providing renewable energy only, are they in fact telling a complete fib?
Catherine, do you want to say something?
Oh, go on.
Yeah, no, they're not fibbing at all. Part of the reason for the, and I wouldn't, it's very difficult. We have a very, very old linear distributed, not distributed grid in the UK because we were an early adopter of electricity. And
Yes.
in the energy transition, we need to put an awful lot of money into changing that infrastructure into what's called a distributed energy infrastructure, whereby electricity is, if you like, grown locally and used locally to equate it to the food industry. So part of the costs, when they're talking about costs are going up, is going towards the changing of the infrastructure into the new world of distributed renewable energy. To your point about the cost of the solar generation itself, absolutely it's falling. And just to give you an indication, 10 years ago, the Chinese wanted per kilowatt hour to be $1. It's already well below half of that. So, you know, it's incredible how far it's come down. And even offshore wind is now generating at $34 per kilowatt hour, which is a phenomenal achievement. And with battery storage coming on stream now, that was a question I wanted to raise earlier, actually, about thoughts on battery storage. Not now, but in about 2 years' time, the prices of batteries will also come down dramatically. They're sort of going up and down a bit at the moment, like the Alps, but at some point they will plateau and fall to a point where the combination of battery and solar and wind together in the UK will make for some very cheap electricity. And let's not be fooled, our electricity is very cheap.
So, right, okay, so without going into any of the technicalities, it is actually true if a company says they're supplying only renewable or energy only from renewable sources, that it is actually possible for them to do that.
It is possible for them to do that. We're creating what's called an energy market in the UK. It's not quite with us yet, but it's on its way, whereby energy will be traded in the same ways that stocks and shares are, according to where the energy is generated and how it is generated.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I don't know whether Richard or Maggie want to say something now. I'm just trying to see who's at the top of the list there. Yeah.
No, I'm good, Alan.
Okay.
Catherine said it all.
I was just going to throw a question out there myself, and that is, where is hydrogen in all this? You know, when one hears about green hydrogen and blue hydrogen, and you know, where are we? Are we close to any of those yet? You know, fuel cells and things like that. I mean, does anybody want to make a comment?
Monumental question, Alan.
Yes, I know you've only got about 3 minutes.
Actually, Alan, someone at the EcoFake was talking about that the other day when you were there.
Oh, well, yes, I know, but
you just bring the question up.
I can't. Yes, I can't remember what they said. But anyway, I know that they were saying it's still a bit of a way off yet. But
oh no, Alan.
Yeah.
There was a piece in, I think it must have, well, in one of either the FT or the Guardian yesterday, that I think it's Scottish Power has got is generating now and producing hydrogen, which they're going to sell for public vehicle fleets and that kind of thing. It was in a paper yesterday, I think.
And is that sort of thing that's going to be sold from a garage forecourt, that sort of stuff? Is it liquid hydrogen?
Well, what they said, I seem to remember the sign-off line in that particular report was all we need is the vehicles.
Yeah.
So, but it was definitely producing hydrogen from surplus solar or whatever renewable energy, renewable electricity.
Susan, you want to say something?
Yes, I did. Well, I'm particularly interested in hydrogen. And in fact, the London Transport for London, they have a fleet of hydrogen fuel cell buses, which I believe
Yes, they do.
in a factory in Northern Ireland. And they are using green hydrogen from excess energy produced by an offshore wind farm off the North Coast. And so that's supplying hydrogen. But one of the my dream is a hydrogen fuel cell car, which do exist. But my main problem is there's no network of hydrogen fueling stations in this country. And the nearest one to here is Swindon, which is a bit far to go to fuel up. So, you know, I can't have one yet. But I think this is the way forward, because they don't require the expensive batteries and the rare metals, which we may run out of, that batteries need. And you just, and it's very like, most change happens really easily if it's something similar to what you've had before. And this is the most similar to, if you fill up with petrol or diesel, you go to a filling station and you fill up. It's exactly the same with hydrogen. They could even generate hydrogen at a filling station if they had a wind turbine and solar panels and through electrolysis. And so you just go there and you fill up.
Yeah.
But the other question I just wanted to ask was that I just wondered about, I have heard about this local energy bill that's going through Parliament. Is that going to make things better for small energy companies? Does anybody know anything about that?
Good question. We better make this the last question, actually. Who would like to answer that one? The local energy bill. Does anyone have any gen on that at all?
Julie, I thought, was talking about that, maybe. Was Julie? Julie, have you got any ideas on that?
I think, sorry, just to say, I think that's a mirror of what just happened in the United States 2 days ago. In California, there was a federal ruling that community energy groups can now compete with utilities. And I think it's the same kind of action being taken here. But Jules, please top me up on that, because you may know more than I do.
I don't actually. That's my understanding of it as well, and a limit to my understanding of it as well. But what I do know is that there's a really interesting organisation, Energy Local, and I've done some of their webinars, and they're looking at creating an infrastructure in rural local communities that have producers of electricity and matching them with users of electricity. And I think that's definitely something that NCE could look at in the future. It is an investment opportunity, and it's a small community network. And obviously around here, there are obvious examples of people producing electricity, and clearly people who use it. So that's a interesting kind of scenario as well, I think, to consider.
Okay, well, that's on that positive note. I think we ought to wrap up now at this point, because I did promise we'd finish at 9 o'clock, and we're just before then. So a big thank you to everybody for contributing. Been, as ever, you know, the conversation gets really lively at the very end when we have to pack it in. But thank you all for attending. It's been very good, you know, we've covered a lot of ground, lots of good things happening. So stay with us and watch the space, as I say, because there'll be hopefully some useful developments over the next few weeks and months, COVID permitting. So thank you all again, and have a great weekend. So bye.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks everyone. Bye-bye.
Absolutely brilliant. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Alan, well done.
Well done, Alan.
Well done, Alan. Great sharing.
Well done, everyone. Cheers.
Well done, Alan.
Well done, Alan. Well done, Sue.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.